Thanks for tuning in. I'm Ronnie Walsh. Today on the show, we're talking about harassment and discrimination in the workplace. We'll also look at how to take care of your mind and body if you're stuck behind a desk. So stick around. We'll be right back. Newfoundland and Labrador Organization of Women Entrepreneurs, supporting the women entrepreneurs of this province for more than 20 years. Over the past year, sexual harassment and gender discrimination has been at the forefront of media coverage. Women were marching in the streets and protesting the President of the United States. Fast forward to the viral Me Too campaign. Women shared their stories and created an online community. Then several high-profile men lost their jobs and their reputations after women came forward with their stories. These events have given more women the courage to speak up and trust that they will be believed. But is the impact long-lasting? What more needs to change? Today, we're talking harassment and discrimination in the workplace. Joining me are two women with unique perspectives. Megan Gardner is Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness for RSA Canada, and Hope Jamieson is City Councillor for St. John's. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you.
Megan, do you feel that we're really getting to the extent of this problem?
I think insofar as sexual harassment is concerned, I think this is a real watershed moment in time. I think what remains to be seen is whether that will carry on to improve and change generalized gender discrimination in the workplace. So I think insofar as sexual harassment is concerned, for sure, I hope that this is going to be a real turning point for women and workplaces, but we'll see.
Workplaces have long had codes of conducts and HR policies and things like that. It's great that we have this. You described it very accurately, I think, as a watershed moment. But how effective are these, pre-existing policies in the workplace? Yeah,
I get that question a lot because people think, what's the point of the policy if it's not being followed? The policy is important, like having an affirmative statement to say this is unacceptable and these are our standards and these are our expectations. That's an important point regardless, but the policy is only as relevant as the culture. And so ultimately, what really will determine whether things are condoned and whether behavior is tolerated is the culture, so leadership, how senior management responds to things, how people behave, and what's tolerated.
Hope, do you think have things started to change for the better?
It's an interesting moment, as Megan said, because I think that for women, Me Too was not any sort of revelatory moment. We're all quite aware of the universality of that experience, but whereas still in so many of these cases, men hold the reins when it comes to the culture that we have to start to change and create that culture of belief around allegations of sexual harassment, then I think that having a broader awareness of the real scope of the problem can play into changing that culture and having people go, this is actually as pervasive as they say it is, maybe we should take it seriously.
You made a good point. Women have known about this for a long time. So who's it the revelation for? Is it just other genders?
I think we need to understand how positions of privilege affect how much you think that your voice is going to be heard here as well. Myself in management positions, I've had sort of entry-level colleagues come to me, having gone to other members of the management team. There's one case in particular that I'm thinking of. A young woman had been experiencing ongoing harassment from a coworker, and she had gone to my superior, and he had said, take it as a compliment. And because she was at this entry level and she felt like she couldn't make any more noise about it, because she had been dismissed so readily, whereas I, as second in command in that case, I was not worried about losing my job if I went to him and went, this is not good enough, you cannot handle this in this way.
Right.
So your position in the organization, I think, matters how much you think that your voice is going to be heard as well.
So speaking in the workplace, Megan, what options or what should women do if they feel that they're being harassed or discriminated against based on their gender? What should they do?
There's a lot of options. So the most important thing is for women to talk to someone. It may be their supervisor, but it may not be. So like as Hope suggested, there's lots of people that are not receptive to hearing when a woman has been victimized in that way. So it's really important just to talk to someone. The other thing about bringing forward a story is you really need to, a woman has a decision around how that's going to impact her personally, and having a public story is not always right for every woman. So that's a big decision to make, and having family support and friends around you that can support you in telling your story is really important. So I think my kind of basic guidance to anyone would be to talk to someone and then decide how you want to handle it. Because it could be, with the exception of if you're really feeling threatened, if there's a circumstance where someone is feeling threatened or there's aggression, then that needs to be escalated and reported to the police right away.
So we're talking about, future implications here. What do we need to do? Hope, you're a politician. Where does our leadership stand on this, going forward? What kind of, messages and practices and maybe policies do politicians, the people who are making the decisions that govern our countries and cities and provinces?
First of all, we need to be leaders quite clearly in our own organizations around how we conduct business ourselves. So I think the city of St. John's, which is my wheelhouse, has to be a leader in respectful workplace policies. So we're talking about hosting a consent forum, for example, for city staff and anyone else who wants to come, talking about like how you engage with that, not just in the sort of minutia of like a sexual relationship, but in the broader scope of things. Don't do things to people they don't want you to do. Don't say things to people that make them uncomfortable. These are not difficult concepts, but it is helpful to have them clearly articulated in the context of your organization, just so you have a thing to point to say, this is what is acceptable here. So I think that's the first step, is setting a great example. And then I think on a policy level, I think it's a little more nuanced. As a municipality, of course, we don't affect any sort of criminal or legal process. But I think that we have the power to support the voices from the community that are lobbying for those things. We have a lot of really excellent community groups that do great work. There are this very broad scope of organizations who can support people who have experienced that and lobby for changes at the provincial and federal levels in terms of how we deal with these things. So I think our role as a city is to support those groups in their work.
Megan talked earlier about it's the conversations that we need to be having. It's the conversations in the workplace. But what about outside the workplace? How do we address this with the future leaders, to use the buzz phrase, future generations? How do we address that with young people?
I have a small daughter, and from the very earliest days of her life, I've been very clear that you don't do things to people's bodies they don't want you to do. So if I say like, do you want me to help you with that? And she says, no, I don't. Do you want a hug? No? Okay. And I think that if that is absolutely ingrained in how you move through the world from your earliest experiences, I think that facilitates a broader cultural change as these people grow up and become adults.
Megan, businesses big or small, what should they be looking at and should they be doing to support this movement or this change that we see happening?
Well, we already touched on the policies, and I think that's an absolute imperative. Even if you're the smallest of employers, you should know your way. It's incumbent on you employing people to know your way around anti-discrimination and anti-harassment concepts and have a policy. And then I think, people in positions of authority and leadership listening, and being open to the signs and asking as well. So if you think something is not comfortable with someone, ask. Don't turn a blind eye. Don't ignore. Don't tolerate. Like, ask and solve and listen.
That's good advice. Yeah. Megan and Hope, thank you very much for being here today to talk about this important issue with me.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.
I'm Connie Parsons. I'm the owner of Connie Parsons School of Dance Limited and the Dance Spectrum Inc. I think I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, even as a teenager. I never really ever worked for anybody else. I just came up with my own ideas, my own jobs, and marketed myself. I think it comes hand in hand with being creative and being ambitious and having a determination to be in control of my own destiny. I think my favorite thing about being a business owner is having that control and thinking, if things go really well and you have a really good day, it's because of you. If things don't go well, it's also because of you, and it's up to you to fix it and solve the problems. I think the key to my success has been a lot of hard work. We have a personal touch here at Connie Parsons School of Dance. Customer service is really important. I like to hear what it is they want from their dance school and what I can do to make that happen for them. I'm inspired by a lot of different people. First of all, my grandmother was a business owner in our small community back in the 1940s. And I grew up watching a woman be an entrepreneur. The arts is very strong here in Newfoundland, and in St. John's, the dance community is very competitive. I strive to be first to come up with ideas and to always adapt to change and deliver what people want. I think it's important for business owners to think outside the box and really adapt to change and be leaders in their industry, listening to their customers and delivering what it is that they want.
Welcome back. Women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men and contribute $18 billion to the Canadian economy. Despite this hard work and success, women are underrepresented in the procurement process. But there's an initiative aiming to change that. It's called Supplier Diversity, and it's something every woman who owns a business needs to know about. To explain what it is, I'm joined by Karen Hocko. She is a diversity advisor based in St. John's. Thanks for joining me, Karen.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk about this. Let's break it down. What is supplier diversity?
Well, when you look at large organizations like governments, universities, big industries, oil and gas, mining, they all make major purchases and for goods and services every year, worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So what we're seeing is that female-owned businesses are not really capturing a lot of these opportunities. So supplier diversity are proactive programs to increase the level of female-owned businesses in the supply chain so that they are actually accessing and can compete for these opportunities.
So is this an exclusion to the process, or how would you describe women not being more involved in it?
Sure. Unfortunately, right now in Canada, what we're seeing is less than 5% of supply chains being female-owned businesses. So there's obviously a gap there, but it's not a gap based on exclusion. It's really around education and awareness. It's at both sides of this. We're seeing that female-owned businesses need to know more about this, get more skills to address this, but we're also seeing more corporations, industries, even our own governments need to really be proactive to get more female participation in their supply chains.
So you become aware of this as a woman-owned business owner. What impact does this have on their businesses if they get part of this process?
The impact is tremendous, actually. What we're seeing is that when small businesses and female-owned businesses tend to be small, when small businesses get into major supply chains, within 2 years, what we're seeing is 70% of them grow in both revenue and in size of company. They actually can double and triple in size in that short period of time. Well, because it's consistent cash flow. These are bigger contracts. You're able to get a bigger piece of business, so you're hiring more people. So this all feeds into an ability to grow your company much quicker.
And that's if you have a woman that owns 50% of the business, right?
Correct. That generally is the threshold, is 50, 51% female-owned and operated.
So what incentive is it for a business or a major company like governments or something like that to want to diversify their supply chain?
Well, I guess first of all, these institutions want to be representative of the society that they're actually servicing. So that makes more sense from a corporate social responsibility perspective. However, what we're seeing now is corporations are seeing real value in supplier diversity. Companies that are more diverse are actually more competitive. They're more representative. And they are also getting more suppliers, better value, and actually increased in innovation as well.
How do women get access to these, corporations and governments?
This is Business Development 101. It's about researching the marketplace, understanding who are the procurement bodies out there, going online and doing research, and then getting some good business development practices in place, targeting your areas, picking up the phone and talking to some of these purchasers, finding out what's coming up and how you can actually get into the supply chain. The other thing is we're seeing more and more organizations having online registration systems. Like NALCO, for example, they're now looking at increasing the participation of female-owned businesses in their supply chain. Go online, register with them. But I also encourage you to pick up the phone. It's like, this is Business Development 101.
Right.
Create relationships with the purchasers within these organizations.
So when people talk about supplier diversity, there's often this certification that's mentioned. What is it, and do women need it to access these supply chains?
Well, the certification is something that is used globally, but we're not seeing it used readily in Newfoundland right now. We connect as a certifying organization. So if you're looking at exporting, it can be very useful to be certified, because some of these large organizations like Walmart's and ExxonMobil's, they actually use the certifications to make decisions for their major supply chains. However, in Newfoundland, companies are not using certifications, so a good way to get to understand who's out there in terms of female businesses is to go to NLOWE. They actually have a database of female-owned businesses, so that's a good first place to go.
So if you're looking to expand your business beyond the borders of Newfoundland and Labrador, is that certification more important?
It can be, absolutely, but it all depends on the business you're trying to target. If you're going after big corporate work, absolutely certification makes sense.
Well, I hope this discussion encourages more women to take a look at this. Thanks so much for coming in with us, Karen.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Stay with us. Coming up next on the show, we'll talk about taking care of your physical and mental health in the office. Stay with us. Newfoundland and Labrador Organization of Women Entrepreneurs. Your goal is to succeed in business. Ours is to make sure you do. The office. It's where we spend most of our time, and unfortunately, we spend a lot of that time sitting. So we're office slugs, and then there's the stress. Long hours, deadlines, but it's not all doom and gloom. You can take back your health and happiness in the workplace with a little refocus. Susan Day is the Office Yogi and is here to talk about how we can do that. Susan, what are the big things that people complain about?
Mostly physical issues with the neck, the shoulders, and the back, and wrists sometimes. And then, of course, stress, like a mental issue with stress and worry and things like that, which can manifest physically as well.
So what causes, the neck injuries and the wrist injuries and things like that in an office? It's not like as if you're, pushing tires in a gym or something.
Well, mostly because people get stuck in one position and they stay there for long periods of time. So have you ever needed to go to the washroom? I'm like, I just got to finish this one last sentence, and that ends up into like 2 or 3 more emails.
Racing from meeting to meeting.
Yes, exactly. And so we don't move enough throughout our day. There's actually a term called the sitting disease, which describes a lot of these issues that people have, and it's because we don't move enough.
Wow, well that doesn't sound very good.
Well, but the thing is, the cure is really quite simple, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Well, I'm interested in that.
All
Now, you
right.
talked about mental health.
Yes.
How does that impact your physical well-being?
Well, when we have stress in the mind and body are connected. We're not two separate entities. The physical body starts to tense up. Our muscles start to tense up, which means then eventually maybe our organs tense up, like our blood vessels, our arteries. And so things like, over time we can have effects like high blood pressure, chances of heart disease, things like that, all because the stress in our mind starts to tense up our body. And if we don't ever relieve that stress and that tenseness, then it just keeps getting harder and harder. So
Let's show me some moves.
all right, I'd love to.
So I'm at my desk. What should I be doing differently?
All right, well, first thing, let's uncross your legs. I know,
Okay.
I do it all the time, and I'm trying not to sit with my legs crossed. And I mean, it's okay every now and then, but again, getting stuck in that position, you're unbalanced in your hips and things like that. Your back, your spine gets all skewed. So I'm a fan of postural alignment, of course, and ergonomic setup, but more importantly to me is to do these movements throughout the day. So even if you have the greatest ergonomic setup, if you're stuck in that position for hours without really moving, the body is meant to move, right? We're meant to move our fingers, our hands, our feet, our legs. So we'll show you a few exercises for the neck and work our way down.
Okay.
Okay, one of the neck can be sensitive for a lot of people. So what I would encourage people is just to do the range of motion that works for them. So if they have neck issues, just be mindful and, don't force anything, right? I guide people, but they're ultimately in control of their bodies.
Okay.
So we're going to do a nice stretch for like the sides of our neck. So what we'll do is we'll sit up just tall a little bit first. So try not to lean back into the chair.
Okay.
And then you're just going to take your right hand and take it over your head, so you're kind of have the right hand over your ear. So your fingers might touch the ear a little bit.
Okay.
And then you're going to start to kind of guide your head down towards the right. So you'll start to feel a stretch through the left side of your neck.
That feels good.
Yeah, and then you can look up or down here. So you can look up towards the ceiling and see if that changes the stretch a little, or maybe look down towards the floor, just a little tiny movement, see if there's like a sweet spot. And one additional thing you can do is take your left hand and take it to the outside of your chair and flex through the heel of your hand. So not point your fingers down, flex your heel and see if that changes the stretch. Take a deep breath in here and then breathe out. And then let's just bring this left hand back to the lap and then gently bring the neck up straight again. So just, again, move mindfully and just take a moment, just do a little shoulder roll here, move your neck, see if that feels different one side.
I feel less tight on this side
Yeah.
and tighter on this side.
Right, yeah. So we'll got to even ourselves out there now.
Wow.
Yeah,
So what's next?
well, the shoulders. Let's work the shoulders and the chest because everything is connected. So we don't just work one body part. It kind of connects everything. So this is great for the shoulders and the back. So of course, we spend most of our days kind of rounded and hunched like this, whether it's at the computer, on our phones, eating, cooking, driving. It's kind of like this curling in of the shoulders, which tends to tighten our chest muscles, our pectoral muscles, and kind of lengthen and weaken our upper back muscles. So this is one of my favorite things to do. It's called cactus arms, and you can do it many times a day. So what you're just going to do is take your arms out in cactus arms, or gold post arms is another term for it. Even spread your fingers wide here. And what we're going to do, I want you to think about, there's a spot between your shoulder blades, and think there's like a lemon back there, and we're going to squeeze that lemon. So we're going to squeeze it for maybe a margarita. I like that. Or lemon water, But anyway, let's start to squeeze this shoulder blades, squeeze the lemon, and then look up towards the ceiling if you can. So your elbows will move back just a little. It's not a big movement. Take a deep breath in here. And then as you breathe out, just kind of soften and let everything come back into place. So look forward and just let the elbows come forward a little. Let's do that again. Inhale, squeeze the shoulder blades, maybe look up. Again, this is a nice counter pose for text neck. And then exhale, just kind of let everything come back to place. One more time. Do you feel your arms here now, the shoulders?
I do, yeah.
Inhale, squeeze. Now it's maybe a lime, a little tinier.
Gin and tonic.
Yeah, there you go. And then exhale, soften, and then just release the arms and give your shoulders a nice roll. Whew. So that, again, stretches our chest, our pectoral muscles, and strengthens our upper back. So whenever I find, like every now and then, I'll just do this. You just have to do one. And then that's,
I
that's
really feel
good.
a difference in here and along my shoulder blades.
Right, exactly.
Because whatever that squeezing was doing has certainly put some pressure and release things
Right,
afterwards.
definitely. Yeah, you're just working, you're moving your body, right?
Thank you so much, Susan. This is great.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. During the season, we're going to take a look at some of the amazing businesses run by women right here in the province. Today, we're going to head on out to the beautiful Bonavista Peninsula to take a closer look at the Bonavista Social Club.
I don't know if there was a point in my life where I decided that I wanted to become an entrepreneur. It kind of happened. I love it. We knew we wanted to have a lifestyle living here, and so that the way to do that was to set up a business. Well, we have, starting off with our wood-fired oven in the restaurant, that's our focal piece. We have 2 different greenhouses. We have a rhubarb garden for our lemonades. We have sheep, we have goats, we have chickens, we have honeybees. Then we have several other gardens, including a herb garden and also our raised beds. My favorite thing about being an entrepreneur would be that I have no boundaries. I can cook what I want, when I want. I make my own hours. And I love to be a leader, and I love to teach. I am inspired by anyone who is doing what they love for a living. Anyone who is, cooking real food and is happy to be going to work every day is definitely a true inspiration. Love what you do every day. Keep it simple, keep it real, get a great crew behind you, which we have. Just enjoy life and enjoy every day, and don't try to do too much. The world is always changing. You need to be able to adapt to change, to keep the customers happy, to keep the staff interested. Next for us will be keep trying new things, new food, keep our consistency level, and just keep doing what we're doing, but trying to do it better every day. We have a few ideas of every year to grow a bit more, but the biggest thing is just not to grow too quickly, that we lose what we are.
That pizza looks amazing. That's it for today's show. On the next show, we'll talk about taking risks and building websites that are right for your business. Thanks for spending time with me.